Welcome to Straight from the Muzzle, folks, where we're anything but straight. My name is Space.
And I'm Sparrow.
And we welcome to our episode, which is about what today?
Oh, this is going to be a cool one. We're talking about nostalgia today, boys.
Nostalgia.
Nostalgia. Why don't you go ahead and define what nostalgia is? What did you pronounce it as earlier, Space?
It's snail-stalgia.
Snail-stalgia? Nostalgia.
It's nostalgia. Well, because I was trying to tell Sparrow about this allergy nasal spray, and it's called Allergy Relief Nasal Spray, but I didn't say that. I said Allergy Relief Nasal Spray, and now it's kind of stuck. So
Nostalgia.
Snail. Okay, nostalgia. What is it? Nostalgia is that sentimental affection for the past, often tied to specific times, places, experiences that evoke happily memories, but it's happy memories.
Happily ever after kind of memories.
Nostalgia is interesting because not only could it be specific times and places, but it can also be linked to smell and taste and hearing of certain things that'll bring you back to a time that was a happy moment for you. So it's really interesting how nostalgia works.
Smell is such a crazy one too.
It is.
God. If we're talking about fandom specific nostalgia, anytime I use fursuit spray for anything other than a fursuit, sometimes I'll spray it on the carpet before we vacuum or whatever, I'm just it smells like furry convention in here.
Whenever I'm in a big room, if there's something going on stage and there's 1,000 furries just packed in there and it's all mildewy, I'm just the smell of mildew at a furry fandom convention. It's good stuff.
No. See how ours were different?
There is no such thing as 621 here.
Oh my God. So that brings us to nostalgia being pretty unique from person to person. It's really personal. So, if you join the furry fandom right when it started, then your version of nostalgia is going to be very different than when we started. It's going to be very different than the 16-year-olds that are listening right now that started 2 years ago, right? So today we're specifically talking about what makes us feel nostalgic, not necessarily what makes everyone feel nostalgic. And we actually have a guest with us today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Introduce,
yes. I said what I said.
Introduce.
Howdy, y'all. I am Roby, or at DwnDog, also previously known as Corritos. I've gone by many names over the years. I used to go by Jasper the Raccoon when I first started out in the fandom.
Rest in peace, Jasper.
Rest in peace. I was a raccoon before it was cool to be one, too, so there you go. I joined the fandom around 2011. I was 12 years old and in middle school, and it was that fine time during the old internet days when it was all about anime and whatever else was out at the time. I just have fond memories.
Back before being in an anime was cool, when it was still a loser thing.
I was a part of the anime to Warrior Cats to furry pipeline, so if that says anything.
No.
But yes,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say the two things that both you and Sparrow have in common is the name changes.
Yeah.
Oh, so many name changes. It never ends.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, Sparrow. I make fun of you every chance I get when that comes up.
Listen. It's not as bad as some furries, all right?
That's true. That's true. So why did you want to join today's show then?
So I've actually been listening to y'all even since I was a teenager back in, I think when you used to do the podcast with Punya, right?
Yeah.
I remember listening to those early episodes a long time ago because I was starting to get into podcasts. I was like, oh, I wonder what furry podcasts exist. And then lo and behold, my good buddy and roommate Sid ends up joining this podcast, which is wild to me. And I've always wanted to do some sort of podcasty thing. I just didn't know how, what, or when, or where. So it's cool to just actually be on here. And thank you to Sid for letting me join. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
This is so exciting. You're a fan who's a guest on the show. I'm sure a lot of fans are like, what the hell?
Sorry, Roby had an in.
There's definitely been some people that are just I'm sure they're just waiting for the chance for me to be like, hey, do you want to be on the show? And they never get it.
Just get that random invite. They check Telegram every day, just waiting for that message from you.
When is Space gonna message me?
Yeah, totally. They're just lurking in the shadows, just waiting.
Heavy breathing.
Oh my gosh. See, okay, if I think of someone heavy breathing in the shadows, I would assume it would be DwnDog. I could just see her like in the shadows.
Your dog
just
is
going,
too cute.
I know, but that's what makes it great though. And then her just kind of like walking into the light and it's just her and it's like, oh, so I don't know.
It's just you.
She joined as a fan
And
too.
then the
She
real
was a
threat
fan of
is
the
Ruby right behind, right behind your dog.
God.
The goth queen is here.
Jeez. It's true though. We have such a unique team. They're like, it's literally like a wild spread of personalities that all crazily enough work together.
Oh man. So we're all very different ages. Why don't we start there? Because I feel like a lot of people associate nostalgia with your age. However, because furry isn't an age thing, it's more of it changes with the times thing.
Yeah.
I am about to turn 29.
So
Roby?
young.
Oh my God, gray muzzle. I'm 26 currently.
Oh, I'm 38.
I'm 38.
No, like most of my friends that I met like early in the days, I'm just like, oh yeah, they're in their 30s now. But guess what? When you get in your 30s, you only get hotter, sir.
That's true.
Woo.
Facts.
That is facts.
We had an email a couple months ago when we were doing Fangasms, and someone had said, like, I'm turning 27. I'm such a gray muzzle. I'm like, excuse me? What?
Oh my God.
27 is like 7 years old in adult age.
For real?
Sorry.
Once you hit 20, you start over in age. You're just a whole fetus yet again.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Re-fetus.
So we're all different ages, but we all happen to join the fandom around the same time, which I think is going to make a really cool perspective for nostalgia for us. So we're going to be specifically talking today about 2010s nostalgia. And there's an S at the end of that, right? So not just 2010, but 2010, I would say, to probably 2017, I would say is a sweet spot. What do you think? What's the sweet spot
For me?
for your nostalgia? Because like 2010 to 2017, because once you hit 18, 19, 20, that's what they start to get kind of like, it's too modern. It's different.
I'd say it's between 2012 to about 2018 or 19.
Yeah. So right
Yeah.
before COVID.
I would say the same for me. I would say 2011 to 2018 as well.
Yeah. Okay. That tracks. So we've kind of categorized what we want to talk about today. Our categories are going to be early internet, artwork specifically, and we're going to end off our day on convention culture, which I feel is one of the things that's changed the most, in my humble opinion. But why don't we go ahead and start with the internet? Because I feel like the furry fandom is mostly internet based, which historically lines up.
I'll take early internet for 500, please. Fur Affinity is probably the most notorious one that's been around for God knows how long. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of controversial if you look at it at that angle. But I learned about Fur Affinity maybe about 6 months or, well, no, about a month or so into discovering the fandom for me. And what was really interesting is that when you went to cons or when you interacted with people online, the first thing you give is your Fur Affinity profile. More than likely, it has like your rep sheet on it so that they can do artwork for you. And that was a thing. I don't know if that's a thing now. It's more or less, here's my Blue Sky profile, or here's my Twitter, or here's my Linktree.
Yeah, Linktree is a big one.
Linktree is huge. We have a Linktree. We never use it. So I hope it's probably inaccurate now. But yeah, Fur Affinity was a huge thing. I think, if I'm correct on this, it was really big. It might still be big to do this, was to edit your profile using like coding.
Yes.
Put like pictures and colors and
Absolutely.
things all over it. And, you know, this is my friend. I'm married to this person, you know. So
You had those friend trains and the colors, and some people would make little groups. Like,
oh my
they just
God,
make
I had groups.
Yeah. Because it's kind of taking off the, like, it's the same energy as DeviantArt, right? People had stamps and people could do whatever they wanted to with their journals. And it was like back when you were allowed to customize.
God,
your
websites
profile.
just don't make you learn how to code anymore.
I am looking at my profile on Fur Affinity and it has Fur Affinity. I cannot. Thank you, Sparrow. You have started this. This is all your fault. So I haven't changed my profile for so long. It still reads as founder and host of Fur Media.
Wow.
providing a voice and social connection with furries around the world. That's still our like unofficial like motto. We have a different motto now, but that's still like the base of what we do. And then just a couple of things. I think the last thing I uploaded, let's see, was in 2016. So that should show you. But I still follow a ton of artists on there now. I just don't necessarily post anything anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what most people tend to do. A lot of people either kind of lurk on Fur Affinity, favorite art, and bounce.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do now.
Yeah.
It's just for me, because most of my fandom experience is fursuit making. Fur Affinity just doesn't seem to be focused on fursuits at all anymore. Like, people who own fursuits don't post their photos, or people who make fursuits don't post work in progress pictures anymore. It's mostly art, which is fine, but I just don't feel like it's a welcoming space for fursuit makers anymore. Most fursuit makers have gravitated to other places, but God, was it full of everything back in the day. Like, if you were a furry, you had a Fur Affinity. If you were at a con, it was, what's your Fur Affinity? It wasn't, what's your link tree or what's your Twitter? It was always, what is your FA? And it was super cool because it wasn't just, you know, like y'all said, you lurk and your favorite art and you dip. You actually talk to people on there. Like, people would read journals and respond, or I don't know. It was just a little more of a social space than it is now.
And it's changed a lot. I think one of the things is, well, one of the most common things with Fur Affinity was how often it crashed.
Yeah.
And the amount of time that you didn't know how long it would be until it came back up. And so eventually someone created a website called Weasel, which was pretty much the equivalent to Fur Affinity, but it wasn't as, I wouldn't say it's successful. It's still going, but like, I think one of my accounts was so inactive for a long time that it just got deleted. I tried to log into it the other day and I'm like, what the hell? I had stuff on there, but every time Fur Affinity went down, everyone flooded to Weasel. And then you would see a ton of art being like posted there. And then as soon as Fur Affinity went back up, everyone left Weasel, went back to FA.
It was like almost.
Oh, I remember those days.
It's like a freaking exodus.
I mean, it was a whole, like, and that's funny because that you mentioned that, which is also, this adds to the topic of the nostalgia. It was a meme to record Cooper Tom whenever he was fursuiting as Fender at cons, and people would go up to him and be like, why is Fur Affinity down?
Another thing with Fur Affinity too, so over the years, it's kind of started to go downhill, probably more so now, unless I'm wrong in that thinking.
Fur Affinity?
Yeah.
Go down, like, as in go down in popularity, or it's like not working?
Popularity and trust.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it didn't have that huge hacking issue.
They had a hacking issue, but that was more recent. One of the first things that happened is that they decided to sell, or they got bought out or made a deal with some random like anime app kind of thing. IMVU, yeah. And that was a huge thing because not everyone agreed with that because there were a lot of changes that they wanted to implement. I don't know how long that lasted because I don't see them anymore associated with FA.
Yeah, because I remember when that happened, that's when a lot of people started leaving FA.
Yeah. They wanted to, I don't know if FA was just struggling financially or what it was, but they kind of did this deal and there was a huge controversial, like, I want to say, I guess, an exodus of people leaving. They didn't really delete their profiles. They just stopped using it. And then after a period of time, they kind of discontinued that and everyone came back. And then there was obviously the server issues. And then there was that recent hacking that happened. And then I think there's also some controversy with some of the people that run the actual board people that run it.
And Dragoneer recently passed away. He's one of the founders.
Yeah. So FA was a huge thing. It probably still is, but when I think of joining the fandom, the first thing I don't think of is FA anymore. I think of Telegram, Twitter, and Blue Sky. Or YouTube.
Oh man, YouTube. That's a good one. YouTube is still super popular with furries, but I feel like old YouTube was so different. Like, I know that's how I got introduced to the fandom in general. It started on YouTube for me because I wanted to be a werewolf for Halloween. And I was like, how do I make a werewolf costume? And I already was super into like dressing up like an animal and animal characters, right? But I didn't know what a furry was. So as I was going through the rabbit hole on YouTube trying to look at werewolf tutorials, I ran into a Beast Cub video about her like quad suits, her wolf quad suits. And then that led me into a deeper rabbit hole. Like, oh my God, a quad suit. I could actually be like a 4-legged animal in the costume. And so I started looking at tutorials that way and I discovered what fursuiting was. And God, there were so many tutorials on YouTube, and there still are. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like all of the tutorials that were in like early YouTube for furries, for fursuit making specifically, all the creators were really young. Like I'm thinking young adult 18 to 21. There weren't a lot of adults who already knew how to make fursuits. It was just young adults who were kind of figuring it out, going, oh my God, look at how I did this thing. You should do it too. Like Matrices is a big one. Is that how you tried to make your first fursuit, Roby?
Yeah, I remember
Matrices?
using her site because she had everything laid out part by part. So yeah, I remember using her site to make my homemade fursuit back when I was a ripe and young 12-year-old thinking I could do it. My mom was very proud, by the way. She supported me all the way. Thank
So
you, Mom.
cute. Thanks, Mom. Sparrow had some tutorials too. I remember following those. And Sugar Poultry, which I don't think is around anymore, but they had a lot of like realistic fursuit tutorials. But God, old YouTube was crawling with young people trying to make tutorials of how to make fursuits, but all of them did it so differently.
Sorry, I'm like searching freaking YouTube now on all these things on her notes.
You know what, Space? I think you're a great person to talk about fursuit skits because isn't that something you really loved?
Yeah, that is something I really liked. But I wanted to go back real quick on fursuit making tutorials because that's how you came to be on Fur Media.
That's right.
And I had you on as a guest to help. I think I learned how to make fursuit feet paws, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done, and I will never do it again. But it was
That's fair.
But I'll tell you what, it was really cool. I did take the one paw that was not done fully, and I took it to BLFC, and I did wear it around a couple of days just to kind of see how it would be. But it was a really cool experience. I learned a lot about fursuit making, and I also learned how expensive it was.
Yeah.
So,
God, it's even worse now.
I know. So much worse. There was a lot of fursuit YouTube or furry YouTube skits out there. The most common ones were like Cooper Tom, Tilt Longtail, my personal favorite, Differently.
I was obsessed with Differently when I was in high school.
Those guys were awesome.
We interviewed them.
Hilarious.
There's also the Fun Day Puppet Show that was a thing. I think they still are.
Oh, they're still going.
They're like, still going?
Still fully going, yeah. Because I think at one point they were going to retire the show, but they brought it back.
I think there was like something that went on between the two creators, but they kind of settled their differences, and I think they continue to go forward with it. I have a friend who knows them really well, so I kind of get all my information from him about like all the dirty side stuff.
As it goes. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
You dirty dog.
And then there were the good old days of grainy fursuit dance comp videos.
Dude, those were like my bread and butter.
Oh, yeah. Huge if true. Because I was just always so... amazed isn't the word I'm looking for. I'm looking for...
Like enamored?
Enamored. Yes, that's a good one. I was just very enamored by fursuit dancing like videos. I think it was just also something that really like just picked at my brain creatively because I just love the concept of dancing animals. It's that simple.
Sometimes you just need to like hyperfixate on some dancing animals. And I know, Roby, you're super like into fursuits in general. I feel like seeing a fursuit do something like dancing just adds another element to the costuming part too.
It's true. It's like, dang, this is happening in person, in real life. That's pretty sick.
In real life, that dog is tap dancing.
There are some like remarkable names out there, like is it Ray Meerkat or Ree Meerkat?
Ray Meerkat.
Okay.
I missed Ray.
Megusu was a really big name. Scroy, Tayer, also known as Albino Topaz, was a huge dancer. Something that dancing dog. I can't remember his name.
Oh, Duke Dancing Dog?
Yeah.
Duke Dancing Dog.
Yeah.
Then there was also the fursuiter who ballroom danced, but also taught dance.
JD Puppy.
JD Puppy. So there were a lot of them out there. And then, of course, there were also some of the more not so tasteful dancers out there. I think you might know what I'm referencing to. Scrat.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Scrat Kangaroo. That was a total thing during my time of like,
I remember
introductory years of the fandom. If there ever was a trauma bomb, it was him.
I'm glad that I
Honestly,
forgot he existed.
And then like German Scrat came on the scene because they had to name him German Scrat to not be mistaken for OG Scrat.
Yeah. And I got them confused because I thought they were the same people. And I'm like, what is this person?
Is Scrat still around?
I think they are, but they might be more mellowed out.
Hopefully they've learned and changed.
Yeah, he was pretty unhinged from what I remember.
He would win like first, second, or third place at a fursuit dance competition. And then he immediately rose to like Hollywood status in his brain. And so he would treat everyone like they were trash. And he would trash talk other dancers too, which was just really unrespectful to do that to anyone. So he was an interesting character, that's for sure.
Like, I understand that it's still a competition, but you're also dancing in a neon green and black kangaroo costume. It's not that deep.
It's really not that serious. In fact, it's the most unserious thing ever.
Dude, what happened to V, though? V was that, I think it was a husky or a wolf fursuit, and his markings were like a tuxedo, and he like disappeared even like when I first got into the fandom. I feel like I saw his videos around 2010 to 2012, and then poof, he was gone.
I remember him and his wife, who was also a fursuit maker, they moved to Hawaii, and that was the last I kind of heard about them.
Damn. I loved watching his dance videos, and there's not a new one because he disappeared off the face of the earth so quickly.
Yeah, it's funny that you talk about that because I feel like there's also a large group of people back in the early days when I joined the fandom that were around the community a lot. And then they either just like slowly distanced themselves or like poofed, or they're just completely offline. And to an extent, I do get that because online kind of sucks now.
I totally get it. Yeah, a lot of the people, when I think of nostalgia, like the quote-unquote pop-ufers of, you know, the 2010s. I mean, if they are still around, they're not as idolized, I would say.
Idolized or involved, really, I think.
And I think it's a good thing. Like, I will say, nostalgia, it can make you have happy thoughts for things that were technically bad. And I will say, the quote-unquote, like, pop-ufer thing, that was huge in the 2010s. Like, if you were a popular furry, you were a popular furry because there weren't that many of us. And it idolized a lot of people in a really uncomfortable way. And I feel like now that it's bigger, we've stepped away from that a bit.
Yeah, and I think that helps as we get older too, because at the end of the day, we're all just like people doing our thing.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
I think like growing up, I'm realizing that even there's still a lot of people like I'll meet locally who are in the fandom, but they only associate with like their close friend group, and that's okay. That's the experience that they prefer. And for some people, it really was just a phase. Like for me, anime was a phase. I'm not really into that scene anymore. And for some people, maybe they got big in the furry scene and then that was it. They're on to the next thing. It was a phase. So
I'm only into anime if like Hayao Miyazaki is involved.
That's real. That's real.
That's legit. Like that's about as far as my extent goes.
I mean, I like anime. I just don't have the attention span for it.
I was getting a manicure done last year and, you know, they're all like basically Korean technicians. And so I go in once and I get this one girl and she's really nice because she and I always talked. But she's like, have you ever seen Yuri on Ice? And I'm like, no, but I've heard of it.
Gay,
she's like,
it?
Let's watch it. Yeah, it's a gay ice skating.
Oh, yes, the gay ice skating anime.
And so we watched like 2 or 3 episodes of that as she's just doing my nails. And I'm like, I love it.
I watched that one.
I remember when it was out and popular at the time, for sure.
God, yeah. My cousin and I liked it a lot.
There's also, like, as far as anime goes, there's a lot of dubbing animes that I like to watch. There's one on YouTube called 50% Off, which is basically, it's just making fun of an anime that's all about swimming competitions.
Oh, yeah. Free.
But they're all, like, they're dubbed and they're all gay for each other in a way. So.
Oh, I remember watching those back in the day.
I watched Free. I do know exactly
Free, that's what it is.
About.
Free.
Yeah, that's why they called it 50% off. That's so fucking funny.
Yeah. It's such a good show. You should definitely like pull up the series on YouTube because it's definitely worth watching.
I remember watching those back in the day. They were funny.
There was one. Oh, go ahead.
I remember watching a lot of like spoof videos for One Piece and Soul Eater because those were the 2 big ones I was super into at the time.
One Punch Man was a good one.
I think we lost the art of making spoof videos of like just media.
Yeah.
And this is like short term. I guess it's like, I mean, it's not the same though. It's You gotta build that from like the ground up on Windows Movie Maker.
Dude, yes.
Which we were talking about earlier today.
We were, yeah. And the other day I was working on one of my commissions and Roby and I were watching just a bunch of nostalgic furry videos while we were making notes for this show. And we were talking about how a lot of fursuiters would actually, when they bought a fursuit, they wouldn't just do like YouTube videos like, oh, we're going to play this board game in fursuit, or oh, we're going to eat all this sour candy in fursuit like normal YouTubers do. They like actually made skits with Windows Movie Maker and with the Windows Movie Maker effects. And you just don't see that shit anymore.
I used to make videos all the time on YouTube and stuff for like the furry fandom. I did like fur meat videos and I put music to them and I'd edit them all in Windows 7 Movie Maker.
Yes.
Praise be the Movie Maker.
The world's best editing software, hands down.
I will say
It's legit.
it's accessible.
Suck it, Adobe.
Yeah, fuck you, Adobe.
Yeah, Adobe sucks. It's so hard to use.
Something that is still around on YouTube and I'm grateful for. I honestly haven't seen a lot of new ones. I need to do a deep dive, but convention videos. And they always have that very millennial techno pop music. or like
dubstep.
Or dubstep. Like it's always the same. I feel like even the new convention videos, that's the kind of music they use. But like, I don't blame them. But there is even new ones that are posted. They still feel old when I watch them, and they're very nostalgic for me.
Some of the more well-known convention videos, not just convention videos, but they actually did like music videos, and then they did like
Revit Fur.
Yes.
Yeah, Revit Fur. So Rev Fur. Another one was
Kiba Wolf.
Kiba Wolf, yeah.
Kiba Wolf. Willian did one.
Sid Stoat.
Easy Cool did one.
Easy Cool, yeah.
They did a really cool like movie called Bitter Lake, which was with Fox and Moore. And the fursuit styles that they used in that was more like realistic.
I remember
like,
watching
feral
that.
looking, and it was so cool. Like I remember when that came out, and I was like, "This is the coolest thing ever in the furry fandom." I think it came out like 8 or 10 years ago.
Yeah,
so.
their suits were by Clockwork Creatures, I think.
Yeah, that's who it was. It was so cool. But they did a lot of good stuff. Like being in the fandom, I never knew that there was such talent. And as running for media and into Straight from the Muzzle, I've seen so many amazing things that have unfolded like media wise that it just blows my mind to this day.
I love seeing the variety now. It definitely feels less homemade now that technology has grown and is more accessible.
Yeah. I knew Sid Stoat. He used to live in Utah.
Really?
So really?
Yeah, he used to live there, and then he moved more back east, probably like, I don't know, like 2014, maybe 15. But yeah, they're really cool. Super hipster, but super cool. Yeah.
Another super cool part of early furry internet was forums. I always think of LiveJournal. But honestly, Fur Affinity counted as a forum too, because you had those journals and you had people's pages and there were threads and things like that. But a lot of artists and a lot of fursuit makers got their footing on LiveJournal, because if you didn't know how to do something, there was going to be a LiveJournal of somebody being like, hey, I tried it this way. Like I remember going on there and I was experimenting with resin, but I was literally 13 and resin is a dangerous substance. There wasn't a lot of people like doing resin art. So I was like, I don't know how to use this. So somebody was like, oh, you could use hot glue instead if you need to. Like there's always someone on there that MacGyvered their way into making some fursuit part. And it was incredible because not all the tutorials there were like professional, but there were creative solutions to problems everyone was having. And it was super cool to see. And that's also a place where if you were a collector, like if you collected Pokemon stuff, there were live journals for that. Or if you were just learning how to animate in Flash and you're a furry, there were forums for that. It was super, super cool.
I used one forum that we used to have for furries in Utah, but they discontinued it, and that's a whole nother story.
That's good that you mentioned that, because that's actually how I originally found sort of the local scene for the Georgia furries. Was the website had a forum attached to it.
Yeah.
And that's how I met some of the first people I met in person from the community.
I still use forums, not like the actual, I use like types of forums for different interests that I have. And I'll tell you what, they still look like they're from the 1990s.
They do.
Yeah, they never changed, actually.
They never changed. But I actually don't mind that they never changed, because that's what I'm used to and that's what I like.
Reddit is the last forum I think that's around that's still super active.
And I use it every day.
God. I think that is something I think should make a comeback. I won't lie, because a lot lot of young furries I've noticed online struggle with finding locals as friends. And I'm like, yeah, like you said, Roby, just being able to go onto the Georgia Furs forum or, Salt Lake City Furs or whatever, like back in 2012, you could actually find people in your area and see meetups of what was going on in one place. You didn't just have to make a TikTok being like, hey, who lives in this city? Or, hey, comment below if what city you live in and see if you'll meet someone. Like, it was less chaotic. You could just go there and it was it.
And I find this really intriguing because back in the day, I can say that now because I'm a little bit older. but back in the day, in my early furry years, it was easier to find furry groups because Facebook was still like a really big thing.
Yeah, and Facebook has forums in it.
Yeah, they have forums, they have groups, they have pages. I don't use Facebook very much anymore just because it's kind of...
It's trash.
It's
trash. Okay to say it.
It's trash. It's dilapidated. We used to create groups. I mean, I was known for creating groups and like pages, but now it's just so confusing on how to create a group. It's like...
It's terrible. It is
You have to know how to code in order to like create a group nowadays, and it's just a mess.
DeviantArt had forums too if you made groups there.
Yeah, I
never used, I mean, I had an account on DeviantArt, but I never really used it for the purpose of it. And I just never fully caught on to the concept of DeviantArt. I think I would more prefer Fur Affinity over DV any day.
That's fair.
I feel like DeviantArt was more complex for me.
It really was a community built by artists, like for artists, and that doesn't really exist anymore.
No, because I would even argue that for Affinity, you didn't have to be an artist to have one. You could just be somebody who enjoys art.
Yeah, it was a very social platform for furries, like back then. But yeah, there's not many gallery-oriented sites like that anymore.
I wonder if there was a big furry presence on, I'm trying to remember the social network, but it was huge. It was
MySpace?
MySpace. Yeah, MySpace.
Oh, I bet. You know what? I feel like a lot of furries were on there, but they weren't furries yet. They were kind of still in their like emo kid phase.
Yeah, okay,
that's what it had to be, right?
Yeah. MySpace was so cool. I kind of wish it would make a comeback because I feel like it could do a really good job in comparison to the market today, like with what options we have. Now we have like WhatsApp and all these other like tiny little messaging apps. I primarily use Telegram now for communication, and there's a lot of groups that I'm a part of in Telegram, which is kind of where I find furries. But
I mean, it's the central place. I mean, it's pretty much what connects all of us. It is Telegram.
And that's what's hard so back in the day, it was easy to find furry groups and local furries because you had these stable, well-off platforms. But nowadays, it's really hard to find local furries because they either have a Telegram group, but it's not advertised like publicly. So you have to like know a person who knows the group. Facebook, there are groups there, but they're not active. Twitter has groups, but they're not active, and their pages are just like, several years old. Fur Affinity has groups, but again, they're not active. So whenever, people email into us and they're like, I need help finding furries. And I'm like, okay, well, let me do the best that I can to locate something around you. And it's so hard. It's so much harder nowadays than before it was.
Things have changed a lot. And I think a big thing with connecting, if you're new to the community and you're trying to connect, the big thing really is Discord and Telegram, and starting with like, obviously it depends where you live, but if you live in like near a big city, go type in furry groups with that city, and they usually will have a link to their like state or regional groups. Cause I know Georgia has that. They do have like a simple website, and then they have all the links on there. So you can join a group or like Discord or whatever.
One thing we didn't mention on here that was definitely a thing is Wikipedia and Wikifur.
Oh, Wikifur,
I feel like Wikifur, it doesn't update as much as it used to.
It's kind of just there. Like it's there.
Yeah.
It's a good place to look at constats, I guess.
Yeah,
that's all I use it for.
That's all you really can do is find con stats if you're there, because the cons themselves don't post the stats regularly. Someone else somehow has the numbers and they post them in the Wikifur, which is great.
I don't know why, like, y'all saying con stats. What if there was like a furry trading card game where there are different cards that was like, oh, MF of 2014.
Oh my god!
And it's a gas type Pokemon. Like it's a whatever, and it has like and it has like maybe a picture that represents a theme from that year or whatever. I don't know. It sounds funny.
Did you ever play I don't know if it was it definitely was a furry game. Have you ever played the game Room Party? It's a card game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as Werewolf, right?
Yeah. It was all card based. It was like I don't know, like 100 cards and stuff. And the whole idea was to create this room party at a FurCon and have the most people in your room with the most interesting people in there. And there was all these like classic stereotypes of like, there's one called Grubby Paws, which is obviously the fursuiter that had the dirtiest fursuit kind of a thing. And if they were at your party, it brought your stats down by like 5 points or whatever. And it's a lot.
That's so funny.
It's such a fun game to play. I don't know if they sell it anymore. So to find a deck of that game has pretty much become like a rarity.
That's funny.
It's a pretty cool game. And Cards Against Humanity was a huge thing too.
There was like a furry card game. I'm pretty sure it was like rated 18 and up, but I forget the name of it. But I remember it kind of being a thing at cons too.
Yeah, I bet.
I don't know if y'all know what I'm talking about, but I don't remember the name.
Damn. Yeah, I don't know.
Also, is it okay if we circle back to the topic of forums real quick?
Yeah.
I wanted to say that's actually sort of where I got my pre-furry start, if you will, I was on a forum called Ginga Board because I was a fan of this, I guess a somewhat niche anime manga series called Ginga Nagaraboshi Gen and Ginga Densetsu Read.
Holy crap of a name.
Yeah, I don't even know how I could say that so smoothly, so I guess that's the hardcore fan in me. But it was one of those things I discovered during my preteens, and it was sort of like Ginga Board was my first pretty much like true social internet experience. And in fact, I'm still friends with people from that old forum board, over 10 years old today, because I noticed a lot of people also from their transition to the furry fandom as well. Because it was like we were a fan of like these anime dogs, so it's like it makes sense. But it was like a really cool little like small community. I met some of my very first internet friends on that site, so definitely forums are a huge one for me.
Do you guys remember amino apps?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I didn't use them, but
I didn't use them. That was a youngin' thing. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
I tried to use amino apps once and it was just tons and full of just like kids and teenagers that had like no one to tell them, you know, like no or slap their wrist, and they just whined all day long. And like the minute you piss them off, they all just like gang up on you like Dodge Angel Dragons do.
Yeah, amino sounds like a bad time. So I only remember that because I think at the time, this was during like I hate to call it this, but it was sort of like the Majira era of furry YouTube.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that was when those like YouTuber furries were like up and coming, and I think they advertised like furry amino apps.
That's right.
Which makes sense for there being a lot of children on there. So
yeah, because a lot of minors were big on watching furry YouTubers. That yummy parasocial relationship.
Yep.
You know, and furry YouTubing is still a thing, but it's nowhere compared to VR furries at this point.
Yeah.
I feel like
It's
VR
changed.
furry YouTubers have like taken over, which it's not a bad thing. It's just not really my thing.
It's not my thing either. There's only like a couple of, I guess, furry YouTubers that I actually like will watch nowadays, but I don't really seek out. I don't really watch furry YouTuber like that. There's sometimes certain videos I'll seek out or I'll watch like old videos, but
I feel
it's
like
not really my thing. It's like a lot of it's big, but like now it's like streamers and like, yeah, what you said earlier. It's that now.
the furry YouTube timeline, it started with a lot of crafters and skit people, and then it evolved into like YouTubers that are wearing fursuits, like they're doing
Poppy
YouTube
furs.
challenges, and then it evolved into a lot of like furry drama YouTubers and streamers, like playing video games and doing VR. And that's where we're currently at.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of furries are more like Twitch streamers at this point.
It's so oversaturated now. I mean, streaming in general is everybody's doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's definitely the thing. I think no, I think that's I thought I was going to say something, but no, I'm good. Sorry.
Well, Roby, I think you're the professional artist here of all of us. You're the actual.
Oh, you're an
digital
artist?
Yeah.
I
Roby
forgot
is
to
an artist.
mention that when I introduced myself. Whoops.
Oopsie.
Yes, I do draw art. So
Where do you
isn't that
post
crazy?
mainly?
Where do I post?
Yeah.
I mostly post on Blue Sky and Fur Affinity. That's pretty much it. I'm pretty bad at actually posting my work because, well, my safer work stuff anyways. My other work, my adult-oriented work is my job, so that's what tends to go up on Twitter and Blue Sky. And
Are you on Blue Sky as DwnDog?
yes, I am.
Okay.
Yep. That is where my general art and all that is at. I do a lot of cartoon stuff that's what I grew up watching and
The
taking
Super
in as a
Toon.
kid. So I'm a big Super Toon. I do a lot of very toony.
Is that your fursuit in the banner?
Which banner?
Blue Sky?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Oh, who's that maker? That's like a really well-known maker for that fursuit.
More for less.
Yeah.
And you know what? That also adds to my nostalgic factor too, is that they were a maker that I fell in love with their work very, very early on when I joined the fandom, because the OG like creators uploaded their very first fursuits on Fur Affinity. And I was like, I had to get a fursuit from them. This is the most toony fursuit style I've ever seen. I need this. It only took me 10 years.
God. And then I made the body.
You did make the body, and it's one of the best bodysuits I have.
Hell yeah.
That's so cool. I'm just now scrolling through your Blue Sky like a creeper.
So, Roby, why don't you go on and help us talk about the nostalgia of furry art? Because I feel like you'll be big in that one.
Oh, yeah. So back then, I felt like I just genuinely felt like there's a lot more super toony, think sort of like Looney Tunes style Animaniacs. A lot of those 90s cartoons influenced my work and a lot of work of friends that I made during my early time as a furry. And you could tell there's that Western animation influence as well as anime, because I felt like a lot of people were coming from anime at the time too, and they applied the animal element to it. So they made these characters that look like they're from Dragon Ball, but they got furry heads, you know? So I felt like those are the big two styles back then. And then, of course, there's like this sort of like general furry style. But I feel like a lot of people back then also did a lot of heavy rendering and very like intricate, detailed pieces that are sort of like semi-realistic. And I don't want to say toony, so I'll just say like semi-realistic. But I think that was also style that was also more popular with the 18 and up crowd too.
Yeah, thinking back on it, the anime influence and the Western cartoon influence, like the only other thing I could think of, well, I guess Disney would be Western, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Golly.
Oh, yeah, I always think about Western work considered Western. That always throws me off.
What about the whole Sparkle Dog and Freakhound era? Were you a Space? You weren't ever like a, oh my gosh, no, you're opposite, Space.
No.
No, you never had like a Sparkle Dog type character, but now you have a unicorn on the back of your persona, so who's to say?
Okay. But my persona today 100% represents who I am as a person. So I never started out as a Sparkle Dog. I created my persona based off of a combination of Star Trek and I guess like a husky dog kind of a thing, but they were always technologically advanced. And that always evolved. It went from like, it literally has gone from dog to bear. So, but it's interesting. Yeah. I never went through that whole Sparkle Dog freak. That just wasn't my thing. I wasn't into huge colors then. I kind of am now, but not to the extreme of what people do.
Yeah. So Sparkle Dogs and Freakhounds were really big nostalgic characters. I know a lot of my characters had like neon colors. They weren't necessarily Sparkle Dogs, but their colors were super saturated. Roby, wasn't one of your characters like, oh my gosh, they weren't like super saturated in color, but they were freaky ass looking. What was that character you had that had like a big ass mohawk and did they have a stripy tongue?
Oh, wait. My old werewolf character, Jax, I think?
Maybe.
With the big red mohawk?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that was a character that I made based off some like, I don't know, I think it was like medieval werewolf art. And one of the werewolves in it looked like he had a mohawk. And he looked like he was wearing goggles, so I made a character based off of that like art. And I made a fursuit of him, and it's really ugly, and I trashed it. I only wore it once, and I trashed it after that.
Oh my god. Oh, yeah, a lot of early furry art, I feel, had that scene or punk or emo kind of vibe to it. And I don't know if that was, maybe you could tell us, Space. I don't know if that was just like us, Roby and I, experiencing that because we were in high school and that was like the style for teenagers, or if it was across the board for all furries because it was the style in general. Like,
I think it could be a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think just the pop of color is what really kind of set everything in motion. When I think of Sparkle Dogs, I think of what is that art company that is well known?
Oh, Vera Bradley?
No. They're known for their color pencils and their stickers.
Oh my god.
Oh.
With the dolphins and the kittens with wings.
Yeah.
Is that not Vera Bradley?
No,
No,
you
it's like
buy
some-
folders with them.
Let's see.
The rainbow leopards.
Oh, wait. No, I know what y'all are talking about. I just can't remember the name.
Pencils, crayons, stickers. Let's see what comes up. I can't think of the name, but they're such a big name in like basically the art industry. But I associate Sparkle Dogs with that and Crayola. If they
Lisa
got
Frank.
together and Lisa Frank.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So Sparkle Dogs is the baby of Lisa Frank meets Crayola. So, and then of course emo is a huge thing too. So
I feel like raver like fashion was also really big, like trip pants.
I thought
and-
trip
Oh my
pants were the
gosh,
coolest thing
yes.
ever.
Oh my god,
they
I'm
kind of
so
still
glad.
are though.
I'm so glad my parents didn't let me get trip pants.
There is a furry who owns a food truck, and it's like a soda kind of truck.
Yeah,
Kind of
I know
thing.
who you're talking about.
But they also do dance videos, and they do trip pants in their dance videos. They always wear Crocs. It kills me.
Not the Crocs.
How do you do
Oh,
the
the Crocs.
Crocs?
But they're so good. And I'm like, I myself would never wear trip pants because they would look terrible on me, but they do look
Oh,
good on
same.
some people. Yeah. The whole like trip pants totally got me into like, oh, what's the dance style that's associated with?
Like stomp.
No, not just stomp. It's
Two-step?
there's jump style versus, let me think what it is here. God, it's going to kill me. Jump style. I know what it is. I just can't think of it. Shuffle. So
Shuffle, yes.
Shuffling and jump style is a huge thing with like strip pants. And there was a fursuiter in the United Kingdom that did shuffling, and they also had like strip pants, and they did like really cool like backflips and stuff. And that was like the coolest thing. But that was also like an early stage of my fandom experience. I can't think of what their name is, but they're really cool. Yeah, I guess there was a lot of emo punk and goth scene type influence back in the day.
Back in the day. Take a shot every time we say back in the day.
Back in the day, back in the day, back in the day.
Oh, God.
No, but definitely, like, I would say the emo and punk scene plays a huge role in, like, the furry community. Because a lot of, especially more of the older friends that I have are still super big into the punk scene. And one of my good friends actually does the emo party at FWA, which we call the Undead Dog. And
That's
basically
what that is.
it's basically where him and another friend, both locals, they will make a playlist and they'll play all the like old school rock and like pop punk jams. Yeah. It's a great party.
That party is so fun.
It's going to be bigger this year, and it's going like fully public. So if y'all are going to FWA and y'all are looking for a fun party, look out for that. It's going to be in the basement at FWA. Just throwing that out there.
A fun party that isn't just
it's in the
techno music.
For real. It's a nice change of pace. Oh my God.
Jeez.
No disrespect. It's just nice to have diversity.
You know what I think of when I think of like emo punk goth and then like the strip pants, the first thing that comes to my head is the dancers to the Thomas the Tank Engine song.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Do, 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 do. And it's so funny. I love all the different like things that people have done to that type of like dancing because it's hardcore music, but when you put it against like something that's funny and cute, totally changes it.
So
It's
good.
so great.
Sorry, I was yawning.
Wow.
It's so rude of me.
Yawning on call?
You know that meme that's like, if a dog wore pants, would it wear it like this or like this? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I remember that meme.
Imagine,
No.
imagine like a meme, but it's like trip pants.
Please.
Oh.
Well, I'm drawing that now.
I feel like a lot of personas in the early 2000s were drawn feral first as well. I mean, I know that
Mine
that was
was,
me. I
yeah.
feel like maybe it's just because, again, we were teenagers, we were kids, and drawing a normal four-legged animal first was easier than drawing a two-legged furry. Well, I say we. You told me earlier you had a okay time drawing two-legged animals, right?
It was always what I drew. I mean, I drew both of them a lot, so it just kind of came to me naturally.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I was like,
feral,
okay, I'll draw feral, and then I'll draw tune, go back and forth, you know?
no issue. Yeah, I drew feral art mostly. And now, even as an adult, now that I'm going back to drawing art, I keep going back to drawing feral art again. So I guess that's just like
It's your inner child calling to
my
you.
inner child says, draw the dog, draw it on all four legs this time.
I'm sorry, I couldn't spell commission.
Oh my God. Yeah, I heard you typing and I was like, let's give him a second.
I think it says concision.
Don't do
Whoa.
that.
It's like COMMCISSION. I sent
Sounds
Sparrow my
painful.
very my very first commission of my character. And then, of course, if you want to share that with Roby, and then I will also, or actually, I can put it in. There's a chat in this recording, if you can see it.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
So there's my very first commission.
Oh my god!
Oh, see, that's the classic furry style. That's it.
And then I think like my most recent, like I don't even have my most recent stuff on here. I'll send Sparrow my most recent. You can see like there's a complete like species change, much like how Sparrow has done over the years.
Hey now.
That's really how it goes.
Yeah.
I have
let me try to find a link.
You have how many personas?
2.
2.
Sparrow and Charlie.
Just 2.
Drop my
wow, scrub. Just 2.
Just 2, huh?
Okay, I found like my very first. I wonder if I can link it in this.
I am Knuff.
Can I get it? It's from Barbie. Okay.
I'm about to drop a link, y'all.
Dollar bill, y'all.
Dollar bills, y'all.
This is going to be so boring for our listeners.
Well, it'll be edited out.
No, don't edit this out, actually. They can listen to this.
Wish granted.
They're probably like, what the hell?
Okay, I put in the link. That's one of the very first drawings I did of my first persona.
Oh my god. Was that done on MS Paint?
I'm pretty sure I did it in Adobe Flash.
Damn.
What?
Roby, send that to me on Telegram. My work computer won't open your link.
Yeah, I'll send it.
I'll send it to you. I sent you a pic.
Oh, okay.
It's so interesting, though, because I've seen a lot of artists start out like this, and then I look at their art now, and it's nowhere in comparison to where they started.
It's the pipeline. It's just the pipeline.
Terrible.
This is the chibi art pipeline.
So great. Oh, I can't wait to share this.
Did you just call it terrible, Sid? That is 10-year-old Roby.
Yeah.
You just crushed a child's dreams.
Good.
What is that? Is that like a pot with a weird like stick hanging out of it?
It's supposed to be a little projector.
Are you joking? It does not look like a projector.
Bad.
I was like, I had to be like, I was probably like 11 when I drew that.
It looks like the Big Dipper with like a weird satellite in it, you know? I love the mouth though. The mouth and the eyes is what kills me.
It was the style of the time.
But given that, the fact that you could shade the colors like that, that's pretty good for a drawing of that style.
There's
what
mine.
What is that?
Yeah.
That's why
that was your first?
I drew that in Photoshop.
What is going on with your hands?
I am raving.
They look like the front of a stapler.
I'm dead. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yep.
With barbed wires at the bottom. What's going on there?
They were supposed to be trip pants.
I'm just dead, I'm dead. But that again, the raving furry, this is peak furry art.
That's so true though.
Why, hello there. This is Rim the editor. So, Sparrow, Space, and Roby ended up going on like a, 8-minute side tangent that they told me to pickle out. Don't worry, I saved it in case we have a potential bloopers episode in the future. But there was no pickle out until they got to the point that they were going to pickle back in. So I just made my best approximation, and Roby really wanted to give an enthusiastic pickle back in. So here you go.
Okay. Pickle. So I think...
Pickle.
Oh, fuck off, Ryan. Interrupting me.
Technically, we didn't pickle out, so...
Anyways, I think a good point to end off on this episode is going to be talking about nostalgic parts of convention culture, because arguably you would say the furry fandom is mostly online, but I'd say the most meaningful parts of it to me are the in-person aspects, and seeing how that has changed over the years is pretty interesting. I mean, some things were really cringe, but there's always going to be cringe in the furry fandom, whether it's old or new cringe. And I think some of the oldest cringe I could think of was fur piles and glomping.
Oh, yeah, that's not a thing anymore.
No. For good reason.
I mean, there's still like no personal space, but you don't touch fursuiters like you did before.
Oh my God. Yeah, so we'll just go fur pile and everyone would just start laying on each other. I'm like, okay.
No, the fur piles, those are happening at the room parties, not in public anymore.
No
behind
more.
Closed doors.
Too many fursuiters now. Fursuit parades were also still a thing, which I miss parades. Bring those back. I remember the year that Furry Week in Atlanta got rid of the fursuit parade. Everybody was pissed. Everybody was commenting on their Facebook and just mad.
Like, the whole trend now is just to do, like, they're called fursuit festivals, which is just all the fursuiters piled into one room. Not very much room for spectators to walk around because there's cameras everywhere trying to take pictures. It kind of defeats the purpose. I like the fursuit parades. They were a moment for people to show off their fursuits, and you got to see all these different styles and homemade ones and, you know, well-made ones. It was nostalgic, and it should be something that's, well, it's a core of furry conventions. And I don't understand why that core was removed.
It's just a shame. What caused that?
Basically what caused it is, and I know this because now that I staff at FWA, I know more about these topics.
Is it spacing?
Mainly bigger cons for sure. It's a space thing. If like at FWA, there's like the crowds were insane last year. The last couple of years, really. And they just can't logistically do it. And I get this too, because I've been in a couple fursuit parades myself, and I did do the one at Anthrocon. It kind of sucks for the fursuiters because, like, once I was in the parade at Anthrocon, it was great. But we were stuck in like a huge ballroom waiting for over an hour to get just to like the walking, like when you walk. And a lot of it really was just kind of standing around and sweating in your fursuit, which was not fun.
That makes sense.
But I mean, if y'all are looking for the best parade experience, Anthrocon is definitely the con to do it, because it's honestly what they've done with it is incredible, because they do the parade and they have like this block party with like the public on the streets, and it's like the perfect vibe. It's great. I always recommend doing Anthrocon to every furry at least once.
I've always wanted
to try. It'd be kind of cool to see them do like a multi-level parade. So you can, there's like a parade going on the bottom level, and then there's like escalator parade.
It's pretty much like that at Anthrocon, because
that's
like
so cool.
You're multi-level. I remember taking like 2 escalators. You're indoors, and then you go outside for like probably 5 minutes, and you go back inside, and you can cool off and stuff. But the worst part really is just like waiting to walk. That's what takes up a lot of your time, and not everybody wants to do that. And I understand that, because, you know, convention time. But yeah, I think that's a big reason why parades aren't as much of a thing anymore.
That makes
just
sense.
space and time and logistics.
It's just so
it sucks,
sad.
but I like the parades too. They're very like nostalgic core element to like old school FurCon culture, I think.
There are still some old YouTube videos of old parades.
They should install like conveyor belts like they have at the airports.
Yeah.
You could like,
wouldn't that be the best?
You could just stand on it and then it just moves.
Nah, I need to like stand on that with the fan inside my like fursuit mouth.
Yeah. That would be so fun.
Perfect.
You put on here that art shows were key to the early con culture.
Yeah, I feel like art shows were more of a thing. I know Furry Week in Atlanta doesn't really have art show. When you and I Space went to BLFC, they had an art show, but it was more like a private auction. But
they still do that.
Which is so cool. I love that they still do it. A lot of older cons had just their art shows, and you could buy the pieces, but there were also art shows where you're just showcasing a lot of traditional art. And I don't really see that as much in the bigger cons anymore.
Because it's not profitable.
Yeah, but like even if it wasn't profitable, just having a space to showcase some art would be cool. Even if it's like your guest of honors art or something like that.
It would be cool if like the art show itself, nowadays con, would be part of the main area where people walk through. So it could be through like on the walls, on the pillars, kind of a thing. So you can see different types of people's art. It's not necessarily those who are in the dealer's den, but it would be another way to showcase the furry fandom's art capabilities.
Yeah, that would be neat. Even if it's just like prints or something.
For sure.
This is something that a lot of people have been talking about recently with how big the fandom is getting, but conventions were also just a lot smaller. And because they were smaller, they were more affordable. They were easier to get to. It was just a little more personal, but just more accessible too. And like, we still have small cons, and I think more people need to give them a chance. You know, take the time to find some smaller cons to try out. But I just I miss the vibe of smaller conventions being close by.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are hitting their, especially like in our age and older, a lot of people are kind of hitting a wall at conventions these days, because especially with the bigger ones, it's just so expensive and it requires a lot of planning. And I mean, with the way things are right now, a lot of people are only doing maybe like 1 to 2, like 3 conventions a year.
Well, it's really stressful.
It's a lot. Like, it's not
because most cons these days, they open up a block period and then within like 10 minutes, all the hotel space is gone. And it's like,
well.
okay, well, now I can't go to that con because there's
Yeah.
no rooms available. And it kind of ruins the magic.
Yeah.
It does. I do miss the days when, because like with FWA, it was like the rooms are open, but it wasn't like, oh, I have to sit here and book it ASAP. It's like, oh, I can kind of book it on my own time, but it's like not a stressor, you know?
Smaller cons are always nice. I've always wanted to go to smaller cons just to kind of see what they're like and maybe just support it and give them shout outs because that's how cons start. They start off small and then they work their way to become bigger. But there are tons of cons that are just popping up like every year. So it's not like small cons are going away. It's just that they start and then they become huge like overnight. So it's weird. It's not like
it's growing exponentially, I think.
Yeah.
Like, especially after COVID, because like a bunch of new people joined and it was like, wow, I can finally go to these like events now. So it was like everything exploded like post COVID.
Which I think, you know, there should be more emphasis on fur meets.
Agree.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
More of them going on. So that way, if you can't make it to a con, at least you can make it to a fur meet. I don't really see fur meets very much anymore.
I think
and if they are, they're very like, you know, behind doors or private and you have to know someone to go to it.
It depends. I think it depends. It really does come down
on
whether
location.
or not you live in a big city or if you live in a city that I guess has more of a population of furries. Because like here, they implemented on the Discord where people can make up their own events and it's not like it has to be like run by like the Georgia group, but it's like people can do things that align with their common interest and you just happen to be hanging out with other furries and it works
That's
out.
cool.
Yeah.
So it's either you gotta make up your own fun or try to seek that out, and it requires effort, you know, on that person's part.
Dealers' dens. You want to talk about that? Sparrow?
Oh yeah, dealers' dens. So if
They be popping.
Yeah, I mean they've always been popping, but I feel like older conventions, dealers' dens were a lot, of course, smaller, but not just when it came to the amount of artists, but what artists could make. Because now we have so many resources to get merchandise made, whether it's like overseas or you order custom pins online or whatever. Like people could sell T-shirts, they could sell flasks, they could sell bandanas, they could sell buttons and whatever. But I feel like in older cons, you had buttons and colors and tails and ears, like, and that was it, and some art, but that was it. You couldn't find like mass-produced clothing. You couldn't find artist-made plushies that were affordable. It was like, here's the stuff I can make in my house. Here it is.
Very scrapbooky.
It was very scrapbooky, yeah. So now every time I'm at a convention and I come across those types of stands that still just sell like buttons and collars and ears, I'm like, oh my gosh, so nostalgic.
I find that like dealers' dens these days, I don't know if it's a common trend or if it's just something that I've noticed and no one else has really noticed, but a lot of, I guess, areas sell their art, but they're more like fantasy themed and feral art. It's hard to come across like cartoony style art. And if I do, it's like super expensive or it's not the animal that I want. Like for instance, I can never find bear art when I go to a dealer's den, which is funny because there's more bears in the fandom than there were before. So that's like my biggest.
You know, yeah, I've never paid attention to that, but you're right. For a fandom that is based on anthropomorphic art, I feel like a lot of the merchandise does end up being feral art.
And then on top of that, like, so you're right. Like there were a lot of like little trinkets and things that you can get. I call those like, what do you call it? Like the gem shop, like spiritual gem shop. Like, like stands and stuff. Contact soap is one that's always there.
It's always the soap. I always see one soap stand.
And the thing is I'll buy the soap, but then I never use it. Because I don't use bar soap. That's just not my thing. If they made it like in a bottle where you could squeeze it out, I probably would buy some. But nowadays, when you go to a dealer's den, you find something very similar that everyone has. It's kind of like going through an anime convention, essentially. Everyone has those, what are they called? Dakarumis or whatever? They're the giant pillowcases.
Oh, yeah, something like that.
Everyone has them.
Sexy
and it's
body
like,
pillow.
Holy freaking overkill. We don't need that many.
Nah, I think I'm good. There's only been like a couple that I've been like, oh, I kind of want this, but I'm like, I don't really have a reason to buy it. And it's just like, oh, that's cool.
Something I really wish cons would bring more of is like fursuit events that aren't just dance comps. Like we used to have masquerades and we used to have talent shows, so you could show like BLFC had a fashion show. I loved that fashion show. Like things like that. It's not just dancing, and don't get me wrong, dancing and fursuit is really entertaining. I love seeing floor wars, love seeing dance comps, but I also miss seeing the talent shows and the masquerade skits that people would have in older convention spaces.
Concerts were always really cool.
Yeah.
The fashion show they did last year wasn't very, it was really, I was on staff last year. I've been on staff for like the past 2 years, not this year though. And I was on staff during the time for panels when they were doing like the judging for the fashion show. And every time I went into that room, there was just a couple of guys just on the computers and there were tons of people in there waiting, but nothing was happening. And I never really saw it take off. So I'm not sure what happened with the fashion show last year, but
weird.
Someone dropped the ball. Yeah, it was weird.
That is weird.
Yeah.
We had there was a drag show. Anyway, I didn't get to go, but it was a thing.
Yeah.
I love drag shows.
I heard very good things about it. I heard it was really entertaining.
Drag shows would be cool. Like you said, talent shows would be really cool to see. BLFC does a really cool thing. There's like a local community. I'm not sure if they're all furries, but it's a symphony that comes in. It's a volunteer symphony kind of a thing. And they come in and they play like, video game music and other types of music. Some of them are furry, some of them aren't, but it's a really cool experience just kind of watch it because it's like, this is neat. I feel like they should do this more often with like more conventions, have kind of like little orchestra type things.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's
Dragon
fun.
Con has the official Atlanta Symphony come in and do music for video games and stuff.
Yeah. So I think overall, there's a lot of nostalgia. It would be interesting to know as you as the listener, what is nostalgic to you in the fandom? If you want to send us an email, you can at talktothemuzzle@gmail.com and let us know. Or you can talk about it in our group on Telegram. And all that information and links are always available in the information below. What about you, Sparrow?
That's, you you segued into that.
Heyo.
Hey yo.
Heyo.
Well, I am curious. Like, if you have a period of furry nostalgia that's different than ours, because ours is very specific, right? Especially if you're a gray muzzle and you joined right when the fandom was beginning, or if you're like a younger person, if you're a teenager and you're just joining the fandom now, I'm super curious to see what nostalgia is like for you guys because we only have our own perspective. I would love to know what is nostalgic to younger furs today. Like, that is super curious for me.
Oh, you know what's funny? I often hear a lot of younger furs mention Five Nights at Freddy's when they seen it when they were like 5 years old. I'm just like, wait, kids saw this? Oh, I was like fully a teenager when that came out.
I was in college.
Right?
Damn.
I was somewhere.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it was like, I think a lot of those sort of like Undertale's another big one, I think. Those are also things that are pathways that lead into the fandom too. Those newer things that have come out lately too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah, I want to know those perspectives for sure.
Do you want to take us out?
Sure. Well, thanks for listening, you guys. I look forward to seeing any emails you have on your own perspectives, and we will see you next time. And thanks for joining us, Roby.
Of course, I had a grand time.
We'll have to have you back again.
Yeah.
I'd love to, honestly, for real.
It was a lot of fun.
It was great meeting you, T-Space.
Thank you. Other than that, folks, we'll see you guys next time. Who knows what the episode will be, but it will be there.
We'll figure it out like we always do.
Exactly. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.